Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Whole bunch of people sent me this story. It's the ending. It's the follow-up I always promise on the story about the guys who were accused of cheating in fishing tournaments. So not so long ago, I told you I believe they'd entered pleas. Prior to that, I told you about them being arrested, and it's all happening in Ohio. So the headline is Weights in Fish Fisherman sentenced to 10 days in jail, required to forfeit boat. And so this is from Yahoo Sports. Jay Busby wrote this. And like I said, a bunch of people sent it to me. Putting weights in fish carries a heavy penalty. See, catch that? Heavy penalty. 10 days in prison and forfeiture of an expensive fishing boat. I had people ask me about that fishing boat, and I believe it was a prize. So obviously, if you cheated to win a prize, the question is, should you be able to keep that prize? The two fishermen who touched off a national story when they stuffed weights in fish during a tournament last fall have been sentenced to 10 days in jail, as well as suspensions of their fishing licenses. And I know some guys would probably look at that and go, ooh, that hurts. 10 days in jail? But that loss of a fishing license. They also have to forfeit a boat valued at approximately $130,000 that they won in a prior fishing tournament. The men are 43 years old and 36 years old. They were caught after fishing in the Lake Erie Walleye Trail tournament last September. The two had drawn some suspicion throughout the prior months for their unexpectedly bountiful run of heavy fish in previous tournaments. Among their winnings was the fishing boat used during the tournament, a boat with an estimated worth of $130,000. When they brought their catch in to be weighed, the tournament director noticed that the fish appeared to weigh much more than fish of that size ought to. Now, you understand, you can have heavy bones, okay? You're big boned. It's a heavier fish, but the fish carries the weight well. You know what I'm saying? So the director cut open the fish, and lead weights spilled out. And the official said, "We got weights in fish. We got weights in fish." A phrase that will live in infamy. In all, 10 weights were stuffed inside the walleyes, 8 weighing 12 ounces and 2 weighing 8 ounces. Police responded to the scene, and the two were ordered to leave the area. So you'll notice it says police were called, and the two were ordered to leave the area. Because people are going to say, wait, Steve, is this a matter for the police? Well, technically speaking, I believe that at that point they had reduced it down to, if nothing else, a trespassing charge, meaning that the men had the right to be there and participate in a tournament which had rules they were required to follow. And so if they're not following those rules, then technically they'd be considered trespassing. But they had bigger problems coming up. No, I will not say they had bigger fish to fry. Had they won, they would have taken home a total prize of $28,760 on that particular occasion. Soon afterward, the two were arrested and the boat was seized. This past March, both men pleaded guilty to 1 count of cheating, a felony, and 1 count of unlawful ownership of wild animals. And so I had a lot of people asking me about the state's involvement in this story. They go, wait, there's this organizer, this promoter that's putting on the Lake Erie Walleye Trail tournament, and it's a private entity. And so the fact that these guys are involved in a private contest with a private entity against other individuals, at what point does the state get involved in this? And I'm 99% certain that to fish in Ohio, regardless of whether it's in a tournament or otherwise, you need a fishing license. And I believe the fishing license has certain rules attached to it as well. That's their involvement at the very least, is that they license all of these fishermen and women. And so there you go. In addition to the jail sentence and the forfeiture, the two will be serving 1.5 years probation and will be subject to the maximum fishing license suspension possible. And here is where this really gets interesting. The prosecutor for the county made some statements here, and he is apparently a little unhappy that this is the best they could do. Like, in other words, he would like to see a harsher penalty here. And he says, "I have no doubt that these two crooks cheated in multiple tournaments over the last several years. Let me repeat that because that's a direct quote. I have no doubt that these two crooks cheated in multiple tournaments over the last several years. Unfortunately, we can only hold them accountable for what they did on September 30th of 2022. Although these two deserve to have their fishing licenses suspended for life, the law only allows a maximum of 3 years. These two should be banned from every fishing tournament for life. That's the prosecutor speaking after this happened. Now, here's the deal. If you're these two guys, and it's been made quite well known that you cheated in a fishing tournament, and you pleaded guilty to cheating in a fishing tournament, and the allegations and suspicions are that you cheated in a whole bunch of fishing tournaments, I wonder if you were one of those people, whether you'd actually show up at another fishing tournament a couple of years down the road and go, well, I got my license back, and I'm here to fish. Where's the water? I'm going to go out there and catch me some walleye. And I admit I was a little surprised that they weigh the fish. They weigh the fish. And I understand. It's been a long time since I myself have fished. But when I was a little kid, we used to go trout fishing on a little stream near my grandmother's house, straight out of Norman Rockwell. I assure you, little kids walking down the road with poles that we cut out of small branches of trees with a line and a hook, and you flip over rocks and you find worms and you catch trout. And I remember measuring the trout because the length was the important thing. But I guess that probably depends on the kind of fish, and I've never fished for walleye. All I ever caught were trout and occasionally these other fish that we didn't like, and we knew that they weren't edible and we tossed them back. But it was also a very, very small stream where at times it was about this deep. There'd be little pockets of water that were interconnected, but quite often you'd have to look around and find water deep enough to actually hide a fish large enough that you might want to keep. But they were weighing the fish, and here's one of those things. If you had simply cheated by a small amount, probably wouldn't have gotten caught. But when you start jamming in all kinds of weights, because all somebody's got to do is pick up two fish that look roughly the same size and go, why is this one so dense? I mean, pretty much, and I'm pretty, I'm not a biologist nor am I an ichthyologist, but I'm pretty certain that fish are made out of fish meat, and fish meat has a certain density to it. And so when you pick up two fish that are roughly the same size and one of them grotesquely outweighs the other, you have to go, okay, something's going on here, okay? Because, again, they're made out of the same thing. Why is one of them substantially heavier for its size? And so we're talking about, presumably, it would be density, which is the amount of weight for the amount of volume, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, there's going to be some physicist in the audience who's going to get upset with me. But it seems like this is something for which you should expect to get caught. And so I had people say, why didn't they use pieces of ice, for instance? Because what would happen is the fish would weigh more until the ice melted, and then it might not weigh as much and it'd be harder to catch. I don't know. But the key is here, they got caught. So that's the end of the story, and that's the final update, I presume, unless something crazy happens down the road. But the weights in fish, fishermen have been sentenced to 10 days in jail, required to forfeit their boat, and I believe this has been listed as a felony. Yes. There's an edit there, because it took me about 5 minutes to find the word, and the word I'm looking for is felony. This past March, both men pleaded guilty to one count of cheating, a felony, So these guys now have felony convictions on their records. So there you go. That's the story. Jeffrey, Beth, Dave, George, and Harriet all sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. When ambition ends, happiness begins.